Thank you. You know, some folks ask about the sacred reading, we call it. It's kind of a tradition in churches that there would be a quote read somewhere along the line, and in New Thought churches from maybe their monthly journals, whether it's Science of Mind, Unity, or whomever. You know, and I think it's beautiful, but typically it's very elementary. It's very simple stuff. You know, like love. Love is butterflies in trees. You know, that's their reading for the day. What we do is we ask our sacred readers, we trust them to seek, look, find the deepest, clearest, most powerful, Christy kinds of quotes. And we trust them we want them to be channels, not readers, you know? We want them to find something that really resonates, something very powerful, so that every part, even our musicians and our chosen music, we want everything to be part of this building. It's not a talk, it's an experience. So everything we do, the morning prayer, the opening prayer, you know, the songs we choose, everything, it's supposed to be like this in temples and churches, and so many people have forgotten that it's all building. And why? Because we're gathering in Mass, we're gathering as a group to connect with God. You know, so to do flippant songs like It Doesn't Matter and just readings that are so basic, it just never really resonated. So thank God, you know, when I could contribute my opinion about this, I could be like, oh, thank God, you know, away from the simplistic and, you know, but yet we're not trying to overcomplicate and wow people with complicated spiritual readings. So the folks, the readers, choose a couple of choices of, you know, what they would read. And I just want you to know that that's how much we care about this experience being fantastic. And the music, it's praise, it's prayer, it's connection, without it being too traditional, you know. So just know that that's what happens here, and that's a lot of why people feel such a frequency here. It's because everything we do, as best we can, 90-something% of the time, it's connected. Everything's really holy, loved, sacred, and so on. And then there's moments where, you know, you slip and you bounce back, but we really do our best to, you know, put consciousness into what we do. On that note, what would you like me to talk about today?
Old ways of being, overcome old thought patterns.
The epidemic of self-hatred on planet Earth. Ooh. Good. The lie of separation.
Hold on one sec. Okay.
Balance and karma.
Find oneself, and one more.
Balance and karma.
Okay. One of you has a child that's pregnant, by the way. Just letting you know. You might already know that, but I can see. It's interesting because the child's soul is near you, and not just with the one pregnant. And that's interesting to me because as I see that in you, you notice I'm not looking at the audience when I say this, you know. All right, I'll tell you who it is. It's the pregnant person is Jeff. Kidding. He's like, wait, what? It's immaculate, you know. And it is interesting that the child's soul is around the grandparent, and there's a reason for that. In your personal life, there's a reason. Oh, okay, you know, you didn't ask for this, but I'm just throwing this out there. It's not just you; it's all of us need to hear this. But the child's near you because you're supposed to be sanctifying the space for the child. You're supposed to be helping to give a blessing like you're a prophet of God, which sounds like a lot. You're like, I'm just a grandparent. No, but listen, you're sanctifying. You're being asked to bless the child so that there's an extra vibe of holiness prepared. Just FYI. Anyway, we have a list of things, and the folks online, epidemic of self-hate, the lie of separation, balancing karma, and so on. There's several things that are coming up. Let's be clear. The old time doesn't even exist. It's an illusion. So there's this thing called God, and God is but love. God created us in its image, not just in its image. God created us in it. God didn't create us over there somewhere. God created us in itself. So God added to itself. And now you have the Father, the Mother God, and the child or children of God. So this is really great news. The bad news is the children of God said, I wonder what life would be like if we weren't in God. Boom, the Big Bang takes place, and we're like, what have we done? And then we flew into the universe to go live out the karma of having that thought. The good news is you can't leave God. The bad news is you can think you did. You can pretend, you can think you did. And there's a difference between God creates, and I've shared this before, I know, but God creates, and whatever God creates is real and it's eternal, changeless. Then what happened when we pretended we're here? You can't change that we are holy beings in heaven, still in God, but it doesn't feel like heaven. That's because we're dreaming that we're somewhere else, which is why Aboriginal people, indigenous people of all continents refer to this as the dream world, or dreaming the world into being. It's an illusion, but God creates. Now you say, well, okay, so is this part of creation? Oh, there's fish and there's rainbows, and believe it or not, that's not the real world. That's just pretty parts of the ugly world that makes you see something you like so you're not so suspicious of missing the real world. So we even created some cute things on planet Earth so that we would be a little distracted. You know, and well, there's nice things, you know. There's peace and war, you know, but there's peace and in between wars. Like, in other words, guys, we've been programmed to settle. To settle. And then if you say there's a world, God's world, where there's no such thing as war, there's people, spiritual teachers, y'all pay too much money to, and too many books you buy of theirs that say, oh no, God is also war, not just peace. God is also rape, and God is also this and murder, and no, that's not true. They're lying to you, but you'll actually believe it just so that you fit in. You're allowed to say, no, the emperor is naked. What you're saying is not true. Let's stop passing God off as a human with emotions and bipolar disorder. God has its ups and its downs because God is all, because they use that cool philosophical stuff. And I don't care if they're channeling. I don't care if their eyes roll back and and then you're like, ooh, this is cool. Their eyes rolled back. A good stoning, getting stoned will do that for you too. That doesn't mean you're cosmic. Wow, where are we going? Anyway, just because they roll their eyes back and say, God is, and if they say it breathy, beloveds, God is war and death as much as life. And people will sit in the audience going, that makes sense. It does not make sense to your soul. It only makes sense to your head. Because your head has you so screwed up, you'll settle for anything. It's not true. Let your soul speak. It is not true. Stop projecting onto God that God has bad moods. I am a jealous God. Well, the Bible said it, so it's true. Who was speaking then? Even then, those are humans interpreting and misinterpreting. They're doing their best for the time. God bless them. But the God of Jesus, for example, cannot be a jealous God. And there also have been, mythologically speaking, mythological doesn't mean false or made up, it means a right brain version of history. So in right brain version of history, there are other beings. The Bible tells us about other gods that have worked on this planet and run nations. There's gods of Israel. There's a god of, the Norwegian region. There's gods of Africa. All, they believed in gods. Those are called creator gods. It's in the Bible. It's not like I'm just throwing this on you. It's there. Sacred books tell us about this. But those gods are sometimes fallen gods that started letting their own egos, because everything that left God has an ego. Thank you. And these beings are trying to run the show, and calling themselves gods. So they're telling humans, you need to worship us. I am a jealous God. And they're throwing these things out. And the humans are going along with it. Just like those of us that listen to spiritual teachers telling you God is a God of hate and love. No, it isn't. And then people say, well, everybody knows there's duality. No, there isn't. Not in God. At the top of the pyramid, God is one. Only when you go through the veil of separation does everything seem polarized. Male and female, good and bad, war and peace, and so on and so on. That's where it polarizes. But there's a veil that separates the truth of God and what we have. And you could say it's like light going through a prism. What happens to light through a prism? It refracts. Similarly, God is but one. Through the veil, it refracts into, well, it looks like God is peace and war, but it doesn't help for us to project that onto God. So there's individuals who have sought the truth, and the truth will set you free. But the truth doesn't just set you free. When you seek the truth, you will first become disturbed. Then you will find. So it's not like you just get on the path and go, oh, yeah, I just started the path this morning, and by noon, everything's perfect. No. When you seek, you will run into, is what it should have said. Seek, and ye shall run into every kind of crazy teaching that's going to try to distract you, including God is a God of fear. Now, you can believe that. It's okay. And you can say, well, I still want to believe that God, up and down and left and right, and God's, moods and jealous God. You can do that. That's fine. God doesn't hold it against you. Therefore, how could any of us? That's your business. What I'm saying is, let's try to allow God to be what it is rather than we tell it to be. And if we allow God to be what it is and we're made in its image, all of a sudden it's like, wait, if God can be without highs and lows, so can I. And you're going to hear a voice go, but that would be boring. That is not God's voice. The voice that says, yeah, but some days are just going to be, until I completely remember, yeah, that might be true. But part of me has never left God. You think you're growing. You think you're doing workshops. You think you're attending services. You think you're meditating. You think you're praying, and you think you're evolving. But all you're really doing is remembering. Another way to say it is all you're really doing on the spiritual path is getting over yourself. Because when you find God, you will find you've always been there. You never left heaven. Now, of course, in Miracles we'll tell you in a couple of locations specifically, but be careful. The separation as far as you're concerned did happen. In God, it didn't happen. But you can't walk around going, well, Michael said there's only, one, and there's no such thing as duality, and, so on. So I think I'm going to stop believing that my gas tank could be full, but it could also be nothing but full. There's no opposite. No, listen, E doesn't mean enough. E means empty. Okay? So you don't have enough fuel, it's empty. On this planet, fill your tank. Eat food that's nutritious for what you believe to be your body. Don't try to be overly cosmic. Don't try to prove that, this stuff doesn't apply. Laugh at it and say, isn't that funny? Despite the fact that I am a holy being made in God's image, I still think I need coffee to wake up. And laugh at it. Just, it's okay. It's ludicrous, but it's okay. I'm a holy child of God. Really? I think I need, that dirty water, as some cultures used to call it, Do I really think I need coffee to wake up? Think about this. I'm a holy being, and I need coffee to wake up. I'm a holy, remember from that word holy, whole, complete. I'm a holy being, but I can't live if living is without you. Seriously? What part of God ever could say that? You know, like is that your sacred music? Let's all chant the chant of God. I can't live if living is without you. That's not God. God doesn't even believe that we separated. This is called healthy denial. The only good and accurate and healthy use of denial is to deny that this has power over you. But do not deny this. God is a creator, and whatever it creates is eternal. We're made in God's image. You know what that means? Whatever we create is eternal. Got that? Got that? You good with that? Okay, then that means war and discretion. No, war is not created. War is made believe. Here's the distinction. What God creates comes from what spirit, guys? What emotion? What feeling? Love. So only that which you create with God, how do you know you're creating with God? Only that which you create from a space of love, therefore, is stamped eternal. When you come from fear, which is about 99.9% of your thoughts and feelings, unfortunately, even science tells you that. You know, there are people out there counting them for some reason. You have 18 trillion thoughts a day, and they are almost all negative. You know, what do you do? Click, 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 click. You know, I mean, that's kind of interesting to keep track of that. But neuroscience is telling you that. Now, that's tragic, but it's kind of funny, too, if you think about it. And you know, there's only one person that can choose again. You're asking about changing old ways. It depends what you're asking. Change old physical ways? Oh, I'm going to change breakfast cereals. Is that what you meant? Or are you talking about deeper, darker patterns? Even when you change breakfast cereals, your ego goes, wait, what? Oh, I was napping. You're trying to change something? I don't like that. When you start to say, yes, and not only am I serious about changing things, I'm actually going to change lies, old belief systems that I am unlovable, to God's opinion that I am indeed lovable, always. Well, you know, the ego's going to, oh, man, don't you be trying to mess with this. I have contracts, and it'll break them out. It's called guilt and shame. That's what contracts are, basically. It's going to break out contracts and say, you're not permitted to change your old ways. Well, yes, I am. I'm no longer choosing to do that. You have signed contracts to this effect. Literally, energetically, we have literally done so. But these are agreements that the ego has in its records of us. There's times when, unbeknownst to you, you said, and it looks it up, you know, oh, right here, I have, quote, I don't want to live anymore. Can I quote you on that? I heard an amen. Okay? It's not the word she used, but think about this. I don't want to live. You know what that does? I'm giving up my power. And the ego says, well, I'll live through you. This is like not a walk-in, but like a possession. Now you have that contract. You know, you said you didn't want to live, and I bought that territory you gave up. I own that. Then there's the part with, you know, I regret having children. Uh-oh. And now the ego is going to control them to some degree. I hate my job. Not a problem. We'll make sure you don't get a raise. We'll make sure you get fired by accident or on purpose. We'll make sure they gossiped about you and you know, threw you under the bus and you got fired. You see what I'm saying? All these subtle thoughts. Now the ego is going to say to us, and does say every day, don't you dare try to change your ways. Don't you dare try to change. Because if you do, I'm going to show you all of the things you ever thought, said, or did that are self-deprecating, self-destructive. And you're going to say, I don't want to believe I ever did that. And so the ego will say, then just shut up and go back to sleep, meaning disempowered. So we allow ourselves to give up our ability to say, I choose again. It'll say, don't you, I'm sorry, never mind. And you're going to be tempted to stay where you were. So in other words, trying to change your life is actually going to need courage that most of us don't believe we even have. You might think you have enough, but you don't. Because the ego is going to show you things that are horrible about yourself, even if it's not this lifetime. Because the ego knows, well, if I can't get you with this lifetime, you know what? Don't make me brush off the old books. Because there's ones in there where you murdered, and there's, you did this wrong, and you did that naughty thing, and you betrayed your vows with the church and whatever. You were a nun, and then you were a nun on a holiday, and you just went wild. And, it's like, it's got photos, by the way, videotape. Before you had all these disturbing people going around filming every disturbing thing on the planet like today, the ego was doing this originally. Filming everything. And it says, do you want me to show you the nuns on a holiday thing? You and your friends, your BFFs, BFNs, best nuns forever. Do you want me to show you? Do you want me to show this to you? And I might sound silly about it because it is kind of funny, but it's also tragic. The ego wants you miserable. It wants you terrified. Of what? Of you. Because you're the doorway back home. If you look within, it could be exposed, and it will be exposed, the ego. But the sad thing is, it's going to say, boo, to try to get you to turn and run the other way. So evil, even entities, patterns, and addictions go on and on until we turn and look at ourselves. That's why self-inventory is part of a 12-step program, because you got to look at yourself. You can't just go, okay, I don't think I'll do that again. That doesn't rid you of it. You've got to be willing to look at yourself and where that's coming from. What's that about? So in a sense, you could say, before you wake up to the all of God, you have to also start with waking up to yourself, that you're not, the false self. Comb through that a bit and do that with God. With God's guidance, with God's courage in you. And then you get to this place and you realize, I'm finding it easier to, and you asked about the epidemic of self-hate. That's what this is about. It's not that you can actually hate yourself, but in the world of make-believe, you are dealing with the karma of all these things that we ignited. As soon as we signed contracts, that puts karma in place. Now, the old dispensation was, the wages of sin are death. And that means whether you call it complete death or death and rebirth, it still means you're no longer holy. Whether you believe you die once or 1,000 times, you're still unholy because you are a sinner. Now, that's not me doing a fundamental, televangelist speech. I'm saying this is what the ego tells us. You are flawed. That's what that means. You're a sinner. You're flawed. And we're like, okay, I'm going to behave. Well, now you're just trying to do behavioral modification. I'm going to behave. Now you're back to trying to be a nun and priest and monk and holy and perfect. But it won't work. It will not work. Oh, yes, if I wear the certain robes and walk with the scriptures, and hello, brother, and quote, and, no, because as soon as you, see something that looks kind of cool, sweet, oh, look at those legs, immediately, then you know what you got to do now? Burn her, she's a witch. And that's what they did, because they wouldn't own that they make mistakes. Our job is not to be perfect. God already created us perfect. The only way you can get back to perfection is not by your own doing. It's by forgiving your imperfections. So technically, you should be excited about those. Bring them on. Thank God I was cold. Now I have firewood. Let's burn it. Instead of them burning you, burn the firewood. Burn your guilts and shames. Be honest about them. Oh, I remember this one. As you break out another Presto log. Yep, I remember this one. Wow. Oh, kind of naughty. Then there's this other one somebody said in a past life, you know, put it on the fire, give it to God. Bring everything to the light of God. As soon as there's something you don't want to talk about, you don't want to think about, you don't want to own, it becomes like its own life. And it becomes like a demon inside of you. It gains its own spirit. The ego loves this because it's almost like it's a puppeteer. And so when the ego can say boo with any of your memories, as soon as it can say boo, as soon as it feels you, okay, here's what it does. Ah, nice. So that one gets to you, does it? And now it starts bringing that character to life inside of you. You're wondering, is that a puppet or Elvis? So it starts breathing life into what? The thing you fear. So your illnesses, your entities, your whatever they are actually chosen because there's an affinity those things have to your weak areas. How could you have weak areas? If you have the ability, courageously look at these things and then forgive yourself for them. You're not going to perfect yourself because the self that we think we are is flawed. It's made to be flawed. You can't fix the false self. The ego has already said it's like getting a package in the mail and it's broken. And you go, okay, but I wish it weren't. Thank you for sharing, God says, but it's already broken. But if I just sit and wish it weren't, you can't wish yourself back. You can't meditate and chant yourself into perfection, even though some people say so. All that you do to try to improve yourself, let's pretend you spend 1,000 lifetimes on it, and you even get all the way to the point of being a powerful being. You can levitate and whatever else. You still can't make the final step from being a human master into returning to God without forgiving everything you just worked on.
Amen.
Yeah. So this is good news, guys. The good news of the Lord is what? Letters in a book? No. People walk around saying, have you heard the good news of the Lord? It's the Bible is the good. The Bible is a recording of what the good news is. The good news is I've been working so hard and all I have to do is forgive myself. That doesn't mean you can lie and just forgive and then, do it again. And, that's fake forgiveness. I'm talking about truly. So there's a concept, seek and you shall find. Remember, it's not just seek and find. It's seek and find and integrate. You have to become that thing. Making amends means apology and change the way you're doing it. Change the behavior. You can't just keep pretending. Sorry about that. Kick you again. Sorry about that. Kick you again. Sorry about that. I mean, clearly it's self-deception. And it's the same as any kind of addiction. You're running on this strange, irresponsible behavior. If I'm truly saying, sorry about that, I should already be working on changing the behavior itself. If I say sorry, what it should be meaning is, I see it, I didn't mean that, or now I don't, I see it and I'm changing it. Repentance. Repentance is like healing. So you don't just seek and you don't just find, because mystics found. Seekers, you could call anybody a seeker, especially if they're seemingly on the spiritual path. Seekers. Finders are like, yes, I found it. That's a mystic. And they're fantastic. All of them. St. John of the Cross and St. Teresa and Gandhi and this person, they're wonderful. They're mystics. They sought and they found. And they have something unique because they found something. They have something unique to say. Guess what? And they download some topic about forgiveness and they download something else and you're, wow, it's very cool. But what's missing or what's really impressive is when the person not only seeks, they find and they become. Now you're talking about an embodiment of all the teachings. Not, have you heard the word of the Lord? Well, I'll tell it to you. Talk, 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 talk. That's like early stage, man. I'm glad you're a seeker. And in your seeking, you're going to tell me what I do wrong so that you feel better about yourself, by the way. Yeah, you're a seeker. I know it sounds like they know and you don't, and they're trying to convert you, but the more they talk about converting you, the more they don't know it. Once they have found and integrated, you know what they do when they walk up to you? They just smile. Hi, how are you? Because if I really get it, when I look at you, I already know that you're already back in God. So I can actually relax a little more. See, I don't have to judge or correct my children as much, and I don't have to correct my partner as much, and I don't need to assign roles to people. You're my this and you're my that, and don't you move, stay there in a box. Everybody assigned a role, which is a description of codependence. Instead, you just kind of smile more, you know? And there are times when the smiling has to turn into what's called the greatest good, and sometimes the greatest good says, stop, that's enough. Firmness. Kindness and connection with God is not enabling. It's not passive-aggressive enabling. It's just, you know. So you don't tell your child, I wish you'd go to church with me. Why can't you go into that psychic with me? They could help you. I understand. I understand that you have ideas of what they should be doing. But what I'm saying is if you already truly get it, and trust me, they sense that you don't, the more you try to correct them. Right? Children of the world, can I hear an amen? Yeah. So they can sense that, but when you really get it, you can still give advice to your child or your partner, whomever, but there's a part of you that trusts that they're already in God's hands. And you can say, I wish, and if you would only give up that addiction, and if you, I get it, and you're well-meaning and you're well-intended. I get, that's nice. But there's something else that happens when you realize, I'm only telling you my opinion of what I think you need. I think you should stop smoking. I think you should stop drinking. I think you should go to my church. Now, you can dispute this with me. You can argue this point, but I'm just telling you, this is one angle of this. This is your opinion saying what they need for their path. What makes you think they're not already on the path? What makes you think they're not on God's path? And as soon as you say they're not because they drink and you don't believe in it, you're actually hooked by their behavior. And trust me on this. You're hooked by their behavior. You can't see God anymore. So what kind of guide are you? How do I know you can't see God? Because you're talking about your child's flaw, your partner's flaw. Am I saying stay married to the abusive person? No. But are you going to define them as that thing? As soon as you do, it's called objectifying. As soon as I give you a label, I've made you into an object. Okay? And if I made you an object, I'm going to see an object. If I see an object, I can't see God. So we have to have pure belief that no matter what you're doing, my child, my partner, etc., no matter what you're, or the world and the politicians, no matter what they're doing, somehow there is a dimension in which they are part of God. Not the one they're thinking from and talking from, but there is a part of them that is their I am presence that's actually still in God. And our job is simply to say, God, when I define them as tall, short, left, right, black, white, Republican, Democrat, I'm not seeing them. I'm labeling them. Okay? I'm asking you, God, to show me how you see them. And it doesn't become a better opinion. You know, I used to see a Democrat, and now I see a Republican. God changed my view of them. That's not how it works. It's not that their skin color changes. It's not their religion changes. There's something that happens that has nothing to do with seeing. It has to do with a feeling. When your third eye opens, and it only opens through love, The more loving and compassionate I'm willing to be, the more this starts to open. You know why? Because this eye sees everything as one with God. As you know, people that think they're opening their third eye and still labeling things, you can't. You can't label things with your third eye opened. Let your eye be single, Jesus says, and you will be filled with light. Which not, let thine eye be single and you will be filled with opinions. Just light. Well, what is light? I don't know. You can't describe it. I ask God to help me see you through God's mind, consciousness, and I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, there's this expansive feeling. You know, when people said I had a near-death experience and I went to the other side and I just saw the love in everybody, and that it's like that. It's not an intellectual view that changes, nor an opinion per se. It's peace that surpasses understanding. So, but I'm not in denial. I'm not in denial that you think you have issues. I work with you on the level you think you're at, I being any of us. I'm going to work with you on the level you think you're at. Mommy, I scraped my knee. Oh, I'm sorry. Inside, I should be saying, as a holy child of God, you can't feel pain and you can't scrape your knee. And I hold that vision for you while I wipe your knee and take care of you and hold you while you cry and wipe your nose, etc. It's knowing the truth but respecting the illusion, being in the world but not of the world. You don't let your mind become hijacked by the ego and see everything from the ego's vantage point, because it only has one, and it's fear-based. Everything that I try to do in my life, any of us, when it comes from a centered place of love, it's co-creating with God. Anything else is not creative at all. It's just make-believe, which is why we call this an illusion so often, which does trigger some people. You know, stop calling this an illusion. You know, that's a funny thing that they get upset about things like that. But what it is you're trying to take away their heroin. Somebody wants to be overly attached to this world, and you come up and do a talk and you say, this world's an illusion, and they get all triggered. Sometimes they get up and walk out, which is totally fine. But there's a reason they're doing it. Why are they upset? Is that God in them going, I don't like that you called this an illusion? Why are they upset? Because you're taking their heroin away. They're addicted to the illusions of this planet. All of its addiction, codependence, even, no offense, but even the whole concept of there's someone out there that completes me. How can you be a whole child of God and only be a half thee? That doesn't make sense. I made you in my perfect image, split in two. You're going to go to Afghanistan and you're going to go in Madagascar, and good luck finding each other. Like some romantic movie, you know, and heaven help you, you know, lifetime after lifetime waiting to find the pitter patter. Listen, those are heart palpitations. You should see a therapist or a doctor. When you feel, and here's the good symbol of a twin soul, the symbol of it is to show you are complete. All that you see in another person that you think completes you, all that you see in them, they get me. That's a sign that you need to get you. They accept me no matter what I do. You need to accept yourself more. They let me share my visions. Why don't you? Is that making sense? I'm not saying it invalidates. I'm saying they are a bulletin board, a sign of what you should be doing for yourself. So to that person, you can say, you are but a messenger, not don't you ever leave me. Because somebody's out there saying, I found my one and only, Michael. And they have a session in 2010, the year. I found my one and only. You know, I'm like, okay, cool. You know, that's why I don't do in-person sessions anymore, because the eye roll, I can't control it. On the phone, I can go, really? No, I'm sorry. I don't. Anyway, in all honesty, guys, I'm good with that. You tell me, and I love you, and I'm going to support you that that's what's happening. But the funny thing is in 2015, no, that wasn't them. I got another one. How can you have another one and only? Think of the words, one and only. I found my one and only 5 times. It doesn't make sense. And I'm not discounting it. You know what? Anything that helps you feel better today that is love-oriented, even if it's romance, congratulations. I wouldn't want you to do things that are harmful to yourself. The gray area starts to get confusing because some people will say, well, I found myself through mushrooms and ayahuasca and whatever. That's fine. What I want to ask you, so that we know whether this is healthy or not, is can you find yourself without it? If you can't have a really cool trip where you become one with everything and you see, creatures in the inner earth going, welcome, and you come back and say, man, I saw creatures and I wrote the names down and now I know the names of the creatures within my own inner psyche. And if you can't do that by just closing your own eyes, you have something that's called a codependence. You have an addiction. No offense. You have an addiction. If you need someone to make you feel better, you have an addiction. Is that wrong and bad and horrible? No. It's just an addiction. Do you want to keep inflating it? Or can you close your eyes and find this here? You are the dreamer of the dream. You're pretending that you need the shrooms to give you visions. You're making them so that you don't own your own power. You're making it like they do that for you. Even a codependent relation, a twin flame thing. The idea that something else holds any of your goodness is still codependence. And I'm not cursing it. Look at it and laugh at it. But seek, find, and integrate. I've been looking for my soulmate. I found them. Now become them. Whether they're living or dying, become them. Everything that they brought to you, you have to become. If you really understand it, it's become. The concept of Jesus, for example, Jesus was not another prophet. He made it clear, and the people around him made it clear. There were, like I said, creator gods in the universe, or you can even call them archetypes. There's an archetype, a Magdalene archetype, a Nefertiti archetype. There's archetypes that are also sometimes embodied as creator gods. Odin and so on and so on. They're out there, seemingly, they're in the cosmos, and some of them personified enough to talk to nations and say, I am your God. That's what happened. However, Jesus isn't one of those. Jesus said, I'm not going to settle for just being a prophet of one of those gods. I'm not even going to just channel a God or my higher self. No settling. I'm going all the way to God in the highest. And I'm going to become remembered as God created me. I am a holy child of God. I am the Christ. Not Odin, not any other being, not Ra or Egyptian Ma'at or any, no other culture. I am Christ. And Christ is the thing that is the highest for us to know God. Christ is God in us. So now Jesus says, I have the keys to the universe. That means he answers to nobody. All enlightened beings, all yogis, all creator gods, they all answer to Christ. And he's not trying to play that out like, I'm better. You know what he says about it? When you measure time, I got there first. But since time's an illusion, we're all in this together. So I am you in a remembered state. And all the things I have done, you're going to do as well. Why? Because I am you in a remembered state. So I'm going to play it out. I'm going to show you. So he's saying, I am the Old Testament brought into manifestation. I am the gods and goddesses, mythology brought into He's living it. He sought, found, and became. I am not telling you about love. I am love. When you see me, you see the Father. All these different ways he said it. But he's not just telling us. He's saying you too need to seek, find, and become. You have to own the Christ in you. And I know some people are telling you the word and about historic people in the book. And that's okay, because that's where they're at, seekers. The finders at certain points close the book, and start breathing it in. They start living it more. I'm not saying totally becoming yet, but the one that finds starts to have like epiphanies, not reading about them, the seeker. The one that finds starts to have them, insights and epiphanies. And then the third is you become. And whether you feel yourself to be on the first stage, second stage, third stage of that process it's okay. That's between you and God. But it gets to be interesting and challenging, because when you start seeking, the ego's there pummeling you. When you start finding that, the ego's there pummeling you. And when you start to become, the ego's there pummeling you. You don't go, well, once I get past the first stage, it's egoless. No, it's going to ride shotgun all the way through this trip. It's going to keep talking. And the worst part is, the higher up you go, the more it's going to talk and attack you. Now, if you say all the tests get worse, the beings against me are more ferocious, you're putting power into those. Don't forget to take it lightly to a degree. Seriously to a degree, and lightly to a degree. The addictions will talk louder. And it is true, energetically speaking, historically speaking. Sure, as you go further and further, yes, there are beings that are assigned to you from the ego to try to mess with you. And this, because the veils are getting thinner on planet Earth, where people are starting to wake up by and large in mass, more and more of the astral world and darker entities are starting to mess with people. And you'll see this, you'll hear about it. I told you this years ago it was coming, and now people are saying it. That's because the veils are getting thinner, so all these worlds are coming together. And spirit, meaning our soul, is saying, how are you doing? Oh, fine. No. When your soul say, how are you doing? I'm asking, how are you doing in this time collapse where you're supposed to jump from wherever you think you are to becoming? Well, I need more time. Oh, really? Because time is ceasing to exist. So you have 3 seconds. Ready? Go. Your soul is going to say, you know what? Enough is enough. But that isn't God punishing, Judgment Day, and so forth. This is our soul, guys. Our soul wants to go home. That's good news. But our human self that we think we are is completely terrified at that notion. So it's fighting to keep things as they were. Again, when you're asking about things like changing old ways, you don't just, I think I'll change something in my life. Change immediately wakes the ego up. What are you doing? As A Course in Miracles says, it goes from being suspicious to vicious. So the ego's going to go, and it's going to take all the forms you imagine in the world. It'll become people throwing you under the bus, people cheating on you, people gossiping about you, and even entities getting involved. The further you go in your awakening, the more you have to face the darkness. And that is, the greater the light, the darker the shadow. But the shadow is just your shadow, right? It's just your shadow. You're afraid of your shadow, as that old saying is. It doesn't mean you're bad when you start to see harder and more intense things. Actually, be encouraged if you can, even though it's a challenging time. Be encouraged and realize, and think of it in Michael's humorous kind of way. Think of it this way, that if you've got some really heavy, dark stuff attacking you, people and words and gossip and entities, if you got all that stuff happening, just look at it lightly and say this. If I were the way I was 20 years ago, the ego would not need anything like now to be messing with me. I mean, me 20 years ago, you might say to yourself, or it might be 40 years ago or 2 years ago, all you had to do was show me a beer. And I was gone, just drinking it up. And I would just distract. Now you're cleaning up all those things, the distractions. Here it comes. In other words, understand that if you're getting hit hard, something is afraid that you're getting somewhere. And it isn't God. Your ego says, let's make this clear. And again, I have contracts to prove it. You are me and I am you. So the ego says, when you become afraid, it's because something's going wrong in your life. But this is the funny part. The ego makes you think you're it, which means when you are afraid of what's happening in your life, it's actually the ego's that are afraid and making you think you're it. Remember that bottom line, you're it. So when you're making your greatest progress, the ego is going to become terrified. You think it's you that's terrified. You need to stop and go, wait, a little switch here for a second. What if this isn't me? What if I'm actually making progress and my ego is terrified? Because if I feel horror, terror, there's only two voices talking to me, God and ego. Which one is it? It can't be God that says, oh my God, they don't like me. You know, she looks younger than me. Is that God? He has more money than me. Is that? No, clearly. What if this candidate wins? What if that? All these horrible things, you know, and if you don't think you have any, watch the news. You know, you get all triggered. But that is not God. It isn't. I'm identifying with my ego, which always lives in fear. When I become fearful, I'm not in touch with God. And the concept of worry means the opposite. It's the opposite of faith. No offense, because I know some of us worry and it hurts us a lot. And I'm not condemning you for worrying because it's a normal human thing. But worry is the opposite of faith. When I know who I am, really know, there's not much to worry about. If you know you run twice as fast as any human being on the planet and you're about to enter a track meet, should you be like, oh my God? If you know you run twice as fast as you got it made, right? And we need to learn to have that kind of confidence about who we are. I don't know if I can survive this divorce. Who do you think that is right there? That if it's not God, clearly, that's fear talking. And the Bible tells us God did not create fear in man, but instead a sound and peaceful mind, which means the peaceful part of me is made by God. If it says God didn't create, then it must not exist. So my fearful self is just another make-believe day. I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if I could do this or that, the other. And guys, we make all kinds of evidence to support the ego's testimony. And for that, I'm sorry, because that makes it very challenging. You know, it's easy to hear these words and you go, wow, yeah, I get it. When you're in a divorce, it's not going to feel as easy. When you're dealing with crisis, life crisis, death, you know, loss of loved ones, and, you know, you're not usually at your child's bedside going, thank God it's an illusion. You know, you're hurting, and that's okay that you feel hurt. But feel the hurt and give the whole experience to God. Show me how you would have me see this. And the more I'm distracted, I can't get over the fact that I'm hurting. That's okay. Because as soon as you said, but I'm willing to see this through your eyes, something in you will permanently change whether you see it or feel it immediately or not. Know that when you ask, it's given. And you can stand at the bedside going, you know, secretly in your mind as you're looking over that person that's passing away and it's a horrible experience that you wish weren't happening. And yet inside, you can say, well, just FYI, Lord, I surrendered it to you. I'm still feeling pretty upset. That's choice now. Stay upset as you'd like, but know that inside your soul, the change was made. The human part just hasn't caught up yet. When will it catch up? When you're in the mood. You know, when you're in the mood. But it's an amazing thing when you're in this zone. You know, like my family didn't like me for probably reasons you can observe just as I stand here. You know, the way I looked, everything was just always wrong. So, but when my human father died, his brother was just totally shaken up. And then my oldest brother was close to my dad, and so he was in a bit of state of shock. But, they're like, should we go see the body, and whatever. And I went, I was on tour, I think, at the time in the area. So I said, okay, well, I'll come by. So I go by. But this is me, man. I just feel so much God. And it's not that I'm like holy and perfect all the time. I'm just saying my typical go-to, my default program is like, I just feel plugged in. And I go there and I saw how these two men, and they're just guys, and they're men. And then there's me, and I'm standing there, and they're just like, the deep, heavy male thing, very grunting and primal, So these two are standing in front of me, and all of a sudden I could feel it. They're, this is really, what a shame. They're doing and all of a sudden, I just took the two of them and brought them into a hug. And I could feel their shaking and breaking down and crying in their way. You see, and it's like, it's okay. You're being a vessel, you're being a channel of God's presence in that moment. But I had no judgment and no agenda. Because you also, when you see the good in people, it doesn't mean you now have an agenda for them to behave a certain way. It just is what it is. I've never seen either of them since. I can't tell you how much it changed. I don't know or care because you stay out of it. All I know is that in that moment, a miracle was taking place. And the miracle wasn't their pain was gone. Realize this. The miracle was they were allowed to feel the pain. And of all people, do you think they went home to their wives? Yeah, that Michael, boy, you really brought us into our feeling self. No, they probably never remembered it happening afterwards. You do your work. You be the presence of God on earth. You seek, you find, and you integrate. You become. And it's so beautiful. And some people are going to say, who do you think you are? And it's going to tempt you to go from becoming down to finding, down to seeking, and I don't know, shamed. I shouldn't look, too good or too happy at the funeral or and you shame yourself. But remember, when they do that, please remember, when people do that, they are you testing yourself. What they're doing isn't very nice and it's not appropriate. That's understood. But as you grow, you realize there is no other. Their voice is me testing myself. If you're okay, you'll never become, seeking, finding, becoming, you'll never become without learning the law of responsibility, that there's only one of us here. And when you realize these things are tests, you actually succeed your tests far more often. When you think of it as a linear, separate thing, this thing that's happening to you, it's harder to make it through life's tests. When you realize it's a mirror of you, it kind of becomes interesting. Well, wait, this is, like a shift. And you just, wow. Maybe yesterday I thought, God, when it's fall, the leaves fall, and oh, what a mess, my yard. And it's a challenge. And you're so put out. Cut the tree down then. No, but I like the tree. Then be quiet. Choose your belief and then hang with it. Okay, so you condemn the tree for dropping leaves, but you want the tree to stay there and have leaves. Okay, fine. You could also go out and rake them and say, this is interesting. I could look at it this way. When the tree is in full bloom, I love it, and it gives me shade and scent or whatever it gives me. I wonder if raking up the leaves is a way of saying thank you. So now I'm showing up. I'm plugging in. You see? And divorces, bad guy, good person, bad person. True, the things were hurtful, there was selfishness and all that, but what if this is a test that I'm bringing myself through? How do you want to score the test? And if you say, I don't care, I'll score an F. Not a problem. God does not judge you for it. God stays beautifully objective and watches you spin around with more lifetimes married to the same person. Because God knows, not hopes or believes. God knows you're going to get it at some point. How could you not? You're God. There's nothing you can't eventually figure out. So God knows you're going to get it. And you, as the image of God on earth, which is not sacrilegious to say you're the image of God, as children of God, representatives of God, we're supposed to start acting like it. Meaning, see the good. Not let the things hit you as hard as they sometimes have. Don't judge your addictions and make yourself not be addicted. That's behavioral modification, which is only short-lived. It's not permanent change. If you want permanent change, seek, find, become. So go on the path of recovery. Start letting it land. This makes sense. Oh my God, it makes sense to include God in my life, to do self-inventory. This makes sense. Now you're finding. And become means I'm not a former addict. I am a child of God. And now the old addiction, it just finds no home here. Not because I'm resisting it. It's I've become something new. Do you see the difference? And closing, in the science of neurology, I've shared this before, but the brain is now known that when you have positive thoughts come into your brain treats it like Teflon, and positive thoughts skip through. Negatives are treated in the brain like Velcro. Well, it's not my fault. Come on. You get mad at me about it. And I agree, it seems unfair. But who do you think created it that way? We did. I have an idea. Let's create a brain where positive changes slip through like Teflon. And negatives, this is just my theory, should be treated like Velcro. Now, you guys could say, well, we appreciate your vote. You're running for office here as a child of God. You're running for office as a child of God on planet Earth. Can you justify how it would make sense that we would want negatives to be Velcro? Nobody would, in their right mind, would believe that, right? But we weren't in our right mind. We believed we separated from God and deserve punishment. The wages of sin are death. So we said, negatives will become Velcro. You know why? Because it won't be my fault. Negatives will get stuck and it isn't my fault. And if I become negative, if I become an addict, it wasn't my fault. This is the way I was wired. But when you seek and find and become, you can't become while still thinking the devil made me do it. Uh-oh. Seeking, I found, and when I found, I started taking responsibility. I allowed it to be wired backwards. I have to now get used to what was once Velcro sticking, and negatives saying, how do you say no to Velcro? Just take two pieces and you look what happens. They stick by nature. How do you fix that in your neurology? Choose again. Believe it or not, forgiveness will start to do that. When you surrender your day, just your day and your life, when you surrender your life, your day to the Holy Spirit, you give permission for her to go in and unplug the wiring your ego did and plug in God wiring. And you become a being of light before going home completely. You go from being a body of darkness to a being of light to light itself. Let's take a few centering breaths. Just relaxing, centering. Let the stuff of life go, the stuff of the world go. What did you hear today that made sense and what didn't? Whatever didn't, you let go. Just let it out like Teflon. Anything that made sense, even if it challenged you a little, if it made sense, breathe it in. Breathe it in, own it. It's yours. If you believe it, then own it as your beliefs, not something you heard in a building in Sedona. Now, think of your most powerful experience, spiritual experience this year. An epiphany. I don't care if it was an ayahuasca journey, finding your twin flame, surviving an illness, whatever was to you a powerful experience, a baptism, whatever was a powerful experience. Let's take just a half a minute to view how you went through that as a seeker, not finder, a seeker. As a seeker on the path, what did that event look like? Which is pretty much going to be the way it was. So right now you're just remembering the event. You're a seeker on the path. You're a student on the spiritual path. What happened to you, if anything at all? It could be this service here today, a sound healing. Tune into it and see yourself going through it like a student on the path. Gradually shift gears and see yourself going through the same experience as a finder. Someone who's like landing mastery and consciousness, more evolved consciousness. Someone that has discovered the truth of life. We're not saying fully Christed, but just, I'm getting it. I'm a finder now. That more evolved side of yourself. See that person going through that experience. What changes? How do they see it? How do they experience it? There should be things like expansive view, expansive feeling, greater perspective, a finder. And one last. Someone who becomes. Seeking, finding, becoming. What if your event is now being completely integrated into you, to where the outer event either really never happened, it was within you, or if it did happen, all of its qualities, all of its lessons are integrated and you become them. They're integrated into your being the way foods and nutrients are integrated into your body as healthy for the body systems. See all that this event had integrated into your being. There's nothing left outside. You become that thing, and give that a moment. Now, even where you're sitting, I am. Not I seek, not I find, I am. If you really get that, and it's okay, you might only get it 10%, you might get 100%, whatever amount you get, I am all that this event was showing me. I am this love. Even just attractiveness to another person, I am this love. Prosperity, somebody won the lottery, I am that prosperity. I am. And sit where you're sitting, wherever it is on this planet, just sit and just slowly let your body unwind so that there's no section of your body that excludes this I am. And integrate it all the way into your bones. This is where dance originated. This is where yoga originated. It originated with consciousness being adapted into the body. Hand mudras, breath changes for half a minute. Breathe this into your body. Head to toe, front to back, side to side, inside, outside. I am. All that I was ever seeking, I am. So your body can also do things like thanks, gratitude. Your hands could reach to the sky as a statement of thank you, because it's not you, this is God we're finding. So if you feel called, yes, lift your hands. If not, move your fingertips. Stretch your back. Allow more God to be integrated into your being. What a relief to break more out of the old and into the new. So take a very deep breath and let that relief make a sound. Oh, good. And the gratitude you feel for plugging into something new and better, take a deep breath and let's let it make a tone for about a minute. Oh, keep going. Take a breath when you need and just keep going. This is a sound of gratitude to God. Let that sound break up old beliefs and cells in your body. Just let it happen. Keep going. Keep going. May seem different or strange to you. A soprano hits a note and shatters glass. When you're toning, you're breaking up old crystalline patterns in your cells. So send that frequency to your body and to the world. Goodbye to old politics. Goodbye to old ways of thinking. Goodbye to racism. Goodbye to poverty. Chant it away. Send it the truth of God. And then here, and so it is. Just slowly integrate back into your body. Good. Take your time. We're going to do our closing prayer. Take your time getting into your body. Thank you. How are you feeling? Tremendous. Good. What did you hear or learn from today's talk that made the most sense for you? Yes?
I loved it when you were talking about how as we rise and that we might find inner peace.
Yeah.
And I had that experience, and I got it from someone, an affirmation.
Wow.
You are. And I went immediately to what I know how to do.
Well, nice.
Is I am.
What a difference, the place of the lost self and then the remembered,
Exactly.
the knowing. Isn't that great?
Such a comfort.
Nice.
I also had an experience from
Yeah.
was when I saw that, I immediately went to, oh my God, maybe these people are evil, they're just looking for money. There's ego, hello.
Yeah.
Michael told me about that. I don't need to worry.
Right.
God will allow me to discern what is good
Nice.
and what I think will.
Nice. In your day-to-day life, seeing how you're learning to call on God to help you see things differently, see things divinely. It's beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Forgiveness is the entry point for the Holy Spirit to be able to un-Velcro.
Yeah.
And create more Teflon.
Yeah. Fight the Velcro. Go ahead. Or just call on the Divine Mother to help you deal with it. And forgiveness is going to be her primary go-to tool for that. Yes.
Recently, there was an experience where there was extreme grief. I couldn't reach that light point. It was vivid.
Oh.
And so the despair and anxiety and depression, just everything kicked in at once.
Yeah.
So there was desperation, and the angel actually spoke that too. You shall forgive.
Nice.
And,
Yeah. Going through periods, depression and hopelessness, like during the week, let's say. It's interesting because you can't have those kinds of experiences without God saying, if you forgive, this will disappear much quicker. Yes, the cycles of life, it'll sort of go away, but it'll come back because it's a cycle. Forgiveness frees the cycles. Just because you figure, well, time heals, just because something fades from your thoughts doesn't mean it's healed. Time sets it aside to come back later, should be what the saying is. Time doesn't heal. That doesn't make any sense. You know? So, right? But a forgiving mind. Now, it doesn't mean you're wrong or bad for having a low day. It's not what I'm saying. You're having a human day. Forgiveness brings you to a divine day. Do you have to know what you're forgiving? You don't. I mean, how is that not us being spoiled? We don't even have to know what we're forgiving. All we have to do is say, all I know is this isn't feeling good. Something in my thoughts brought it to me, and I'm giving that to God. It's an erroneous belief or a judgment somewhere on someone, and I'm giving it to God. That's all we have to do. Just give the situation to God in a forgiving mind and ask, in the flip side, ask to feel God's day instead. What kind of day do you, Holy Spirit, want me to feel? I know it's not this. God's never said, I want you to have misery for a few days. It's impossible. The Lord thy God is one, and the one is love. It can't have good and bad days. All right, let's do our collection and our closing prayer. Please be as generous as you can be in the collection. We appreciate it. We're just past halfway through the year, and we've done our finances, and just those of you who have the means, we're doing pretty good for the year. But as happens, we did new carpet and some new electrical up here, the AV and all that. So we're needing to raise about $5,000. So for those who have the means, please send some extra this week for the month. So take your love offering, hold it to your heart, really believe in this. Even if it's air that looks like a lack of money, take the air, charge it with abundance, charge it with prosperity, with your love. You can follow the prayer in the form in front of you or online. Together, please. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Thank you. What did you hear or learn? Anybody else want to share from the talk or the meditation? I'll just do one or two more people. Yes?
From the talk, whatever level that we feel that we're at, the tests that we seem to go through, and so much peace and understanding that it's just a reflection to us instead of something happening
Right.
to us.
The stuff you go through is a reflection of where you're at. Deep, dark stuff, deep, dark place. It's summarized very well by Mother Teresa. I know that God doesn't give us more than we can handle, but I wish he didn't trust me so much. Yes. Seek, find, become. Right. Beautiful, isn't it? Seek, find, embody this stuff. Stop just talking about it. Stop just talking about the journey, the search. Stop just talking about you found. I mean, that's fantastic, of course. Become. And when you become the change you want to see in the world. You become a guide. You become a support system. You become a midwife to others. Daughter of heaven, basically. You become, and you're like, I don't just talk it, I'm here. How can I help? No person can feel pain, aloneness, and you just ignore them anymore. Now, at least in here, a blessing prayer goes to them. If not, holding their hand and whatever else you do. Yes, one more.
When we allow the Holy Spirit to make us into Teflon, we become mystics.
Yeah. When you let the Holy Spirit turn you into Teflon, you become a mystic. A stick that, no sticking here. One more person in the back. Yes.
Pretty awesome.
somebody else brought it up too, but that notion of whenever we come into conflict, that we can embrace that we're not helpless.
Right.
When we come into conflict, we feel helpless.
Right.
Embrace that and say there's something actively that I can do at this moment
Right.
to fall into Christ consciousness, and that puts us in this active role. Sounds really nice.
Beautiful. Yeah, you're welcome. Isn't that amazing? Just repeat that in a sentence if you can.
I was thinking about it and I ended up writing it in my phone because I didn't want to lose the idea. The notion that whenever I have conflict, I am not helpless.
Whenever we have conflict, we are not helpless. All that we need is right here.
I can notice my opportunity to be active in Christ consciousness.
Wow. Just, yeah, centered and active in Christ consciousness. If God is with me, what could be against me? Jesus didn't have to fight the stuff he dealt with. He didn't have to fight demons. He didn't have to fight illness. He knew the truth, and in the truth, those things can't function. They just become, powerless. And we will all come back to that. Well, I wish I could, in healing people and exorcism. No, wait. Start here. You got a few things to exercise already, So just know, start there. And anytime if I start to feel like called, and it's right to do, even if I feel called by God to do something for someone or some group, I also hear, and for yourself. We're in this together, just clear yourself. Okay? Do you know how to do toning? Like, any of our chaplains? Do you remember how to do that? Do you know? So lips together and you tone, right? It could be whatever, right? Do me a favor and go to the back row over there. The gal that was just sharing, can you raise your hand for a sec? This will only take a minute. I'm going to have her kneel down behind you, and she's going to send a tone into your heart from between your shoulder blades. Is that okay? Okay, good. I'm glad you agreed because your guides already told me yes. So, and so what she shared at the end was brilliant, but there's something happening in here. So, nice. Just breathe that in, seek, find, integrate. Let the stuff break up in here, whatever it is. You don't have to know what it is. But something's there. Let it break up. A couple more times. Join me with this. Breathe in our love and let that start to break things up. Good. Let's Just relax. And so it is. Nice job. You receiving well? Soak it in. Yeah, the deservability. So let that become kind of an affirmation for yourself. I mean, a whole service stopped to do that for a moment. It must mean you deserve. Do you understand? And if you deserve, if she's us, wow, we deserve goodness in our lives. Thank you. Please stand for our closing prayer. Isn't it amazing what we share, what we experience here together? It's so grateful. We close with a breathing and a sense of gratitude. But it's not just what we appreciate here. What if God appreciates the work we do to wake up? What if God appreciates that we have a center? What if God appreciates those of you who donate to help the center continue? What if God appreciates that we care enough about each other to, take a hand or give a hug when somebody's struggling? Feel God's gratitude. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is, always. Peace be with you. Thank you.